All right, I'm going to try to do this video in one 15-minute set, so we don't have to have multiple videos here. So if you need to pause the video at any point, go ahead and do so. Or hopefully everything will work out. So new mass culture. As we get through the 1920s, we talked about a bunch of things in the last section with the fear of communism and the increase of new technologies and machineries and Model T, Henry Ford improving the lives of his workers, and you have the fight between modernism and Christian fundamentalism, and the move from the cities to the suburbs, and people moving from the rural areas to the cities, and all of those things being combined together to create this new mass culture that we would refer to as the Roaring Twenties here. And there will be three videos actually that are attached to this that I will skip over, but you need to make sure that you watch them so you kind of get an idea of what is going on during this period in our country. So don't just breeze through the videos because I do so. Please make sure you stop and actually watch these videos yourself. So in the 1920s, you have urban dwellers that see an increase in leisure time, going back to what we talked about in the previous section with the washing machine and the dishwasher and all these things that allow for more spare time, more free time for women especially, but men too. So farmers are going to work from dawn to dusk. They had very little time for recreation. In the evening, they might play games, board games. They might read or sing along with the piano or their family. And they would occasionally join up with other farmer families, down the road or within their community. But really, they didn't do much outside of their farm besides that. There are very few times they might travel into the nearest city. But if you were a farmer, you pretty much were born, raised, and died on the farm. It wasn't a very lucrative career, but it was definitely an honorable career. People obviously needing food and so forth to survive. But if you live in the city, you're a completely different lifestyle. Cities and the suburbs, people earn more money. They had more time for fun. They looked for new kinds of entertainment. This particular picture right here illustrates for you the theater. The movie theaters in the 1920s really becomes this new phenomenon, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a second. But you had the clubs and the bars, and by this time in history, we've got baseball is really becoming extremely popular. Basketball's starting to kind of pick up some steam. So you have a lot of different opportunities for entertainment if you're living in the city or the suburbs than you did if you lived in the rural areas. And that's a lot of the reasons why you have a lot of farmers who are leaving and moving into the cities. So one of these new kinds of entertainment was the motion picture. In the 1920s, roughly 80 million people went to the movies each week. Throughout most of the decade, movies were silent so people could watch them no matter what language they were spoken in. Radio also becomes an important medium for entertainment and communication. Same shows, same music, same news. That means that everybody is having access to the exact same thing. That's really the key to creating mass culture. And we mentioned that back in Standard 4 when we talked about the Gilded Age. Now, these movies, we're not talking about hour-and-a-half, 2-hour-long movies. You're not going to go see Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or the newest Die Hard movie. What we're talking about is a movie that lasted anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes. They were black and white. They usually did not have any voice, but most times they had some type of music that was associated with the video to kind of increase tension and so forth. And they were about a nickel. So that's why so many people were able to go to the movies, even during the Great Depression, when people were literally dirt poor. The movies were still relatively popular because it was an escape from the issues that they had going on in their daily lives. Movies were affordable, as we said. They were available to everyone and everywhere. And one of the earliest movie stars was Charlie Chaplin. Movies were democratic. They were universal appeal. They created stars known around the world, such as Charlie Chaplin. And his first really big movie was The Little Tramp. And then 1927, Al Jolson appeared in The Jazz Singer, which was the first talkie ending the era of silent films. Going back to Charlie Chaplin, he's going to charm audiences with his facial expressions, and you'll see that in the video that you'll watch here in just a second. So you want to really make sure you remember who Charlie Chaplin is. You don't necessarily need to remember The Little Tramp, but it wouldn't hurt. And then who or what was the first talkie, The Jazz Singer. And you'll get to see that here in just a second as well. This is really when you begin to see movie stars, and I guess professional athletes too, because this is the period of Babe Ruth and all that. Movie stars become national icons. As American people wanted to wear the clothes, or they wanted to drive the car, and they wanted to socialize the way Hollywood portrayed life. And so we start to see this kind of beginning method of illustrating a life that everybody should want. Not always realistic, obviously. You guys have seen plenty of movies in your days, and smart enough to know that life is unlike what the movies portray. And in some cases, that ends up creating depression back then, and even in some cases today, because you believe your life is supposed to be a certain way when there is no certain way a life should be. Every person's life is different. Every individual is different. And so you can't fit a specific mold. There's no mold to fit, despite what Hollywood may try to tell you. So the next two slides are videos. Like I said, I'm going to skip through them. I suggest that you take the time now to go ahead and watch them as opposed to going back later. So in addition to changes in entertainment, the lives of African Americans continue to make progress as well. We mentioned previously about the Great Migration around and kind of during World War I or right after World War I that leads to people moving into the suburbs. But also, in addition to white people moving from the cities to the suburbs, you had African Americans that are going to move from the south to the north. And there was a heavy, dense population of African Americans that moved from the south into the suburb of New York City known as Harlem. And so the Harlem Renaissance, circle it, highlight it, underline it, do whatever you need to do. It is a revival of African American culture and dance, music, art, literature, you name it, it happened. And this will kind of start to bring to light some of the issues that African Americans were dealing with during this period of time in our country, because we're still 35, 40 years away from the Civil Rights Movement. But you begin to see all of these really popular musicians, singers, artists that are African American that start to bring attention to the fact that African Americans are just as good as white people, and in some cases even better than white people. The color of their skin did not matter. They were just as talented. They could do the job just as well. And the more people realize that, that's, I think, why you begin to see the Civil Rights Movement occur after we finish up with World War II. So many African Americans moved to the neighborhood of Harlem in New York City, and much of this revival attempted to show how unfairly African Americans were being treated. Jazz during this time will become more popular as musicians from Louisiana and Mississippi brought their talents to the North. And jazz music in the 1920s is like rap music now. Rap music when I was growing up. I used to listen to rap music back in the day. Eminem, Nelly, 50 Cent, all those guys. And you have this mentality of older generations of, whoa, what is that crap that they're listening to? How can you sit there and listen to that? And what's funny is, obviously, I'm not very old, but sometimes I'm sitting here thinking about the music today. What in the world are these kids listening to? But that was how jazz music was back then. The older generations, a lot of them just didn't get it, especially when they were watching the Flappers, which we'll talk more about in a little bit. The Flappers, the jazz music just made, and this is coming from them, not coming from me, it made their hips move in ways that hips weren't supposed to move. And so it was the devil's music. But it brought attention to some very popular African-American musicians, and that's what's most important. This gentleman right here is Louis Armstrong, and go ahead and take a second to watch this video and get a flavor for what type of music he played. And then this video is a very brief video about the Harlem Renaissance. Goes into a little bit more detail than I just went into, so go ahead and watch that video as well. But before you do that, there are 3 names that I want you to write down for me in your notes. One of those is Louis Armstrong, L-O-U-I-S, Armstrong, and he was a jazz musician. Then you have Langston Hughes, who is a writer and poet, and then Zora, Z-O-R-A, Neil Hurston, H-U-R-S-T-O-N, who was a writer. She was a fantastic writer that was attributed to the Harlem Renaissance period. So women's roles are also going to change in the 1920s. I think I only have about 3 minutes or so before I'm going to run out of time here, so I'm going to try to speed things up a little bit. Women's roles changed in the 1920s. Women are going to marry later. They had fewer children thanks to a new invention called contraceptives, and they generally lived longer, healthier lives. You had labor-saving appliances, which we've mentioned multiple times already, so we don't necessarily need to go more detail into that. But more women than ever are entering into the workforce. Generally, employers only hired single women, believing that married women are going to have children and they're going to quit, because there's no such thing as maternity leave yet. So if you were in the workforce, it was likely that you were single. Obviously, that leads to issues, single women and men being kind of the leaders of the workforce. And you guys can obviously figure out where I'm going with that. But that was typically who was going to be hired in the workforce. So flappers are an important attribute to this period. They're kind of a revolution in manners and morals. As more women are going to enter into the workforce, they kind of change their dress and behavior. Remember, most of the women in the workforce are single. So they're going to have shorter hair, they're going to wear shorter clothes, they're going to swear in public, they're going to drink in public, they're going to smoke in public. They went out on dates in public instead of hosting at their home under supervision. And yes, I did say that. Even when you were a little bit older, you were expected as a fine lady of the time and to hold Victorian values that your date is going to be in a house and it's going to be supervised by people to make sure that there's no temptations that people give into. The flappers are rebellious, they're fun-loving, they listen to jazz music. You can see about the figure on the screen. They move their hips in ways that they weren't supposed to move. Now, the flappers, they were not every single female in the country. It was still a small percentage, but they broke down some of those barriers that women were supposed to fit a certain mold. Women could do whatever they wanted to do. They were just as equally powerful as men in their eyes, and they were going to make sure that the men realized that. They were very flirtatious. They kind of toyed with the man's emotions because they felt powerful, and they utilized that. So the flappers are going to play a pretty significant role in the changing of attitudes towards women. So our last slide here, writers of the 1920s were called the Lost Generation because they lost faith in the Victorian cultural values. This is at the end of World War I into the 1920s. The gentleman on the screen, F. Scott Fitzgerald, he's going to explore the idea of the American dream, writing that his generation had found all faith in man shaken. And probably his most famous work is The Great Gatsby, which is obviously a movie now with Leonardo DiCaprio. You also have Ernest Hemingway, who's going to question the concepts of personal sacrifice and glory and honor